Greetings from Las Vegas. Welcome to the EOG Sports Hour. John Kelly with you on a Wednesday night. Glad to be representing EOG. The three letters stand for Ion Gaming. EOG.com, a website dedicated to the hearts and minds of sports bettors everywhere. We're getting a fresh start Monday, September 1st. You'll see new sponsors, new layouts. The website will have a new direction. I'm eager to get going on Monday, September 1. I hope you'll enjoy the changes. We're counting on our community to rally behind the move. And part of that move will be a dedicated radio program 5 nights a week with quality guests. We're going to try each and every day to bring you the best gambling guests around, sports bettors who are in the arena gambling and trying to win it. The tough game in the world of 11 to 10. Ed Jones, our featured guest tonight. He's been with us every Wednesday night in the month of August. We appreciate him staying up late on the East Coast to join us on this program that airs every weekday evening at 10 o'clock Pacific. Ed the Statman, good evening. Welcome to the program.
Can you hear me now, JK?
You sound crystal clear this week. A bit muffled last week, but we got the kinks out.
Oh, very good. EOG community, if you can hear me now, check into the forum. And I just set up a post here. Check in and make sure you can hear me so we can have a good show tonight.
I believe it was EOG contributor Heim who said you sounded a bit muffled last week. We appreciate everyone who listens to the program on a nightly basis. I know EOG contributor Cheap Seats is up late listening tonight as well. Looker is in the main forum. Teddy KGB, Brick, Almost All Right, and many others. Ed the Statman is a member of our community as well. He doesn't participate as frequently as others. He's got his own job in the financial industries and also has his own website at EdTheStatMan.com. But we always appreciate when he contributes. Although last week, Ed, a little rough with the selection. We mentioned winners on the program. We also mentioned losers on the program. Last week, you told us go ahead and take the Chicago Bears +7 over the Seattle Seahawks. Score at the half, the Seahawks 31, the Bears nothing. The final was 34-6. What happened to the Bears?
That was a complete dead dog side on Chicago, and I had a rough night the last Friday night. I ended up putting in 5 bets total, lost all 5 of them. That was the late game, and it was just once I got to that point, it was like just one of those nights that just nothing was happening, and then I kind of woke up the next morning. I had that first punch in my gut feeling in the football season when you just get that first 0-4 night, and it's difficult. And looking at it, it was kind of like more of a psychological issue with regards to the having a rough night, because when I went back and listened to my analysis on the show, I talked about how the Bears backups were playing, pretty well, and they were outscoring their opponents, and so I probably should have backed it up with a second half play in that game, but I didn't because I was having a rough night as it is. No sense of having any more risk out there, and it was just one of those nights. But eventually, I ended up turned around having a profit in week 3 of the preseason. So I lost in week 1. One in week 2 and week 3, and so I had a pretty good Saturday night and also one with the 49ers Sunday. So on the show, it was a difficult loser to give out, but hopefully we'll bounce back this week with a couple winners.
Yeah, and a good bounce back, too, surviving an 0-5 Friday to win Saturday and Sunday to come out a winner for week 3. That's a kick save and a beauty. Ed tonight will go on record with 2 selections. He'll give us a play for tomorrow's preseason action in the NFL, 4th and final week. He'll also give us a play for week 1 in college football. First, he's going to give us some general theories and betting strategies and systems on how to attack week 4 in the NFL and also week 1 of college football. You mentioned the Bears quarterback situation. Jordan Palmer no longer with the Bears. They kept Jimmy Clausen as the backup to Jake Cutler, but as I understand it, David Fales out of San Jose State University. He'll get the start for the Bears tomorrow. You've got to be careful with week 4 in the NFL preseason, Ed. A lot of these teams are not playing their starters.
Absolutely. Week 4 of the preseason, it's difficult to handicap because you really have to look at the backups because the starters are all going to sit. And this is one of the weeks where, for example, you look at the Chicago Bears, they're starting David Fales. They're going to give him the whole game, and if he's playing during the regular season, that's going to that season would be pretty much in the tank. So it's like, let's run the rookies out there, see what they can do, and give them some playing time. And you mentioned that they released Jordan Palmer, because Jordan Palmer, a veteran guy, kind of knew what they got in him. It's obvious they're going to keep Fales around as the third-string quarterback, and basically what they're going to do is just give him the shot, give him the run, and let him go and see what they have in him and see where they need to develop him. In Philadelphia, we also have another situation where they're going to be sitting both Foles and Sanchez as the backup, and going to just let Matt Barkley out there and run him the whole game. And from what I'm reading, it's going to be a showcase game for Barkley. It's obvious that Chip Kelly's not going to be trading Mark Sanchez, and hopefully Barkley puts on a good show tonight, and Barkley would be the one that would end up being trade bait if another team needs a quarterback.
So the Eagles to start Matt Barkley, and he'll likely play the majority of the game. Some other quarterback assignments for tomorrow that we should be aware of. We mentioned the Bears situation. Ed mentioned the Eagles situation. I know in New England, the Patriots are going to start Eastern Illinois' Jimmy Garoppolo. He'll get the start for the Patriots and play the majority of the game. And in Tennessee, they're saying that Zach Mettenberger, we saw him compete for LSU past couple of seasons. He'll play the majority of the game for the Titans.
Yeah, I mean, it's opening night of college football, and then we get all our favorite college football quarterbacks starting in the NFL preseason. And I enjoy it. I mean, I know a lot of people hate the NFL preseason, but I enjoy it because I get to see how these quarterbacks that we've watched in college, how they translate to the NFL game. And I got to watch Johnny Manziel a few times so far in this preseason, and after watching him so much in college football, when he's able to make plays out of nothing, be able to run and move the football and get to the outside, turn the corner, move the ball up the field with his legs, even if he doesn't have an open receiver, that has been few and far between in the NFL. The speed of the play is a lot faster, and they're getting to the outside and taking down Johnny Manziel when he's trying to make something out of nothing. He has made a few plays with his legs, but not as many as in college football. And also going back to that preseason game with the Patriots and the Giants, it's probably one of the better quarterbacks matchups you'll see tomorrow night with Garoppolo. As they said that, this guy's a virtual unknown coming out of Eastern Illinois and didn't play at the FBS level, and he looked pretty good so far in his efforts in the preseason. And they're talking about maybe even possibly trading Mallett and moving up him to second. But one of the better quarterbacks that we've seen in the NFL preseason is Ryan Nassib, the second-year player out of Syracuse for the Giants. That guy has been really able to move that ball up and down the field against the backups from the other teams, and he's been probably one of the old, back in the day it was always Matt Hasselbeck when he backed up Brett Favre, and Matt Hasselbeck was like the greatest preseason quarterback ever until he finally became a starter. And like Ryan Nassib is having that kind of preseason this year, so keep an eye out on him in the future as a possible play-on quarterback when he does get a starting nod somewhere.
And one of the keys to the backup quarterbacks in the NFL preseason, I'm not telling any of the sharps anything they don't already know, but the dual threat, the ability not only to throw, but to evade the pass, to be able to scamper out of trouble, find receivers downfield, or take off yourself. One of the keys, I think, Ed, in monitoring preseason football is to know that some of these guys we might see late in the season. Injuries happen in the NFL. You'd be amazed how many starting quarterbacks go down year after year. I like to keep a chart every season to see exactly what happens with these starters and the backups. I know last year, teams that didn't have their starting quarterback, they struggled straight up and against the spread. The market was not able to keep up with these backups. They'd come in, and it's just such a complicated position. These defenses are so good these days in terms of attacking these quarterbacks that it's just an uphill climb for a backup QB in the NFL anymore. Remember many years back, seeing a quarterback start an NFL game. Didn't even know who he was because I wasn't following the preseason as closely as I do now. But his name was Jonathan Quinn. And, I had no idea where he came from. I think he was a Jacksonville Jaguar starting quarterback for a time. And, he came in and, there he was on the NFL betting board. You could bet on a Quinn or against a Quinn. His college was Middle Tennessee State. But, you get some weird quarterback sightings in the NFL sometimes.
Well, exactly. And it's funny because I'm sitting here looking at the Rams quarterback scenario, and I personally don't think that it's much of a drop-off from Bradford to Hill with regards to everybody's looking for the magic potion. What's this guy worth to the number? And this is where even though I enjoy the mathematics end of handicapping, but looking at the quant guys, they're always looking for a value for everybody. But, just looking and watching the games and looking at the numbers, the drop-off from Bradford to Hill is really not that great, especially in the short term. All Bradford did was go 18-30 in his career as a starter, where Sean Hill played got some starts for the Lions, and he was 13-13 in his career as a starter. So he's actually a 500 quarterback, which with that defense, if he's able to be a 500 quarterback with that defense they have in St. Louis, they should be able to win some games. You look at last year, Bradford went 3-4 as a starter. Kellen Clemens, of all people, came in and went 4-5 as a starter for the Rams. So again, there was really no drop-off with regards from Bradford to Clemens. I don't think there's going to be any drop-off from Bradford to Hill. And also, don't forget, we always look at the quarterbacks of the drop-off. Backup quarterback, he's not going to be any good. But remember, last time the Rams lost a quarterback in the preseason, his name was Trent Green. They lost him in the preseason, and then some guy that we never heard of, Kurt Warner, came in, and the next thing you know, the Rams were hosting the Lombardi Trophy. So can't never say it's never happened before. So there's still a chance that it can happen.
Yeah, Warner came from the AFL, if I remember correctly, the Arena Football League, where he had that quick release and able to throw into short windows. But I think he was bagging groceries a few years before that Super Bowl victory. Kurt Warner certainly burst onto the scene and stayed there for some time. One thing about missing Sam Bradford, too, Sean Hill, 13-year veteran, to take his spot. I always look at the coach and the coaching staff in those situations, Ed, because Jeff Fisher on the sidelines of the St. Louis Rams, a lot of times he'll play to not lose games. He's not playing to win games so much. In fact, I'm sure he's instructed Bradford many times to, take care of the football, not lose the game for us. We'll win it with defense. We'll win it with our outstanding place kicker. So a lot of times you have to look to the coaching staff and see their strategies when there's an injured player.
Absolutely. In this situation, again, that also fits into the fact that, there's really no drop-off in point value against the spread in this situation because basically with that defense, I think the Rams' biggest gaping hole is a solid running game. And I think that's what when Jeff Fisher was the coach of Tennessee, you had McNair as a quarterback. Again, he was a quarterback from an FCS school. He started out very well, but they had Eddie George, and Eddie George was just kind of hand the ball to Eddie George and take a pounding. And that got them to the Super Bowl. That got them into the playoffs every year. Quality defense, good running game. And I think you're going to see a lot of that type of play with the Rams. But the problem is I don't think they have the strong enough running game there to be able to overcome, especially in that NFC West. So it'd be interesting. I hope that the market overreacts to the Bradford injury, and we're able to get some value in the Rams playing, probably playing all the Rams, getting a lot of points, and also playing the under. But again, it's all about perception. And Bradford, number one overall pick, $50 million man. If he was not the number one overall pick or the $50 million man, this probably wouldn't even be a big story with regards to the quarterback change.
We have a big story in Columbus, Ohio, Ed, the biggest quarterback injury in college football to date. Braxton Miller out as the Ohio State starting quarterback. He's out for the year. He will try to come back in 2015, but no Miller now for the Ohio State Buckeyes. An interesting reaction in the betting marketplace to that injury. Initially, everyone thought the Ohio State might be in a little bit of trouble without Braxton Miller. I saw a number as high as 17.5 on that game. I saw 12.5 at Caesars Palace at the market low, but now the money's come back on Ohio State. I see at Chris right now, Ohio State's a 16.5 point favorite. Doesn't say much for Braxton Miller. I don't think the NFL scouts think too highly of him, and I don't think the betting marketplace does either.
Well, I mean, the one thing about injuries, I think the betting market overreacts in the short term. Injuries are an issue in the long term. How many times do we see in the NBA where I kind of started noticing this following the Sixers my whole life? Allen Iverson. Every time Allen Iverson was out, the market reacted the other way. The other players stepped up, played more of a team game and won the first couple games whenever Iverson was out. And then in the long run, though, you lose 25 points a game. In the long run, you start getting difficult matchups. That's when you start to miss the player. And that's the same thing that's happening, I think, that's going to happen here. It doesn't say much for Braxton Miller now here in the short run. It's Navy. They are playing Navy. The backup quarterback for Ohio State, I'd probably bet that he is still the best. He's still going to be the best athlete compared to anybody Navy runs out there Saturday. So on top of that, you're going to have all these kids from Ohio State who read the newspapers, read Twitter, read all their social media accounts, and they're going to and everybody's talking about how Ohio State, they're done for the season. They lost their quarterback. Well, how do you think those other 80 kids feel that was kind of like, well, your team was based on your quarterback, and now your quarterback's done. You're out of the national championship picture. You have no chance. That's going to fire these kids up in the short term to be able to come out and put together a quality game. Again, they're in a higher class than the opponent they're playing. And so, to me, Braxton Miller is worth there's really no drop-off here in this game. But when you get into the Big Ten schedule, and now you're looking at games at Michigan State, where Ohio State would have probably been about a 3-point favorite in that game. Now you're going to look at Ohio State probably come as a slight underdog in that game with the backup quarterback, depending on how he fares over the past couple of over the first few games. And I think that's where the issue is with the injuries. It may not have any value up front, but getting deeper into the season, when you start to play the Big Ten schedule, you start to play your team, the quality of opponents that are kind of recruited to beat Ohio State. That's when you start to get into the issue of, well, what's this player worth to the team?
Here in Las Vegas, I did see some advanced numbers on that Ohio State-Michigan State game in East Lansing. I saw right around pick. One spot I think had Michigan State won, the other had Ohio State won. Not sure after the injury information. I think it was taken down. We'll see if it's put back up. But, you make a good point. A lot depends on the level of competition and the importance of the player. And that game, by the way, on Saturday, Ohio State-Navy, that'll be played in Baltimore, Maryland. They're playing that at M&T Stadium. I'm interested in seeing the crowd split in that contest.
Yeah, I mean, it's not very far from the naval campus. However, when you get these bigger schools, you see this in college basketball a lot. When the bigger schools go on the road, they don't go to the campus. They'll go to the NFL stadium. They'll go to the NBA stadium, and it'll be a big road trip, especially to a major city, and it'll be a bigger road trip for their fans.
Interesting.
And so it's kind of like it negates it really negates that home field advantage. When I handicap it, I look at it as a neutral site.
Mm-hmm. How do you handicap the Central Florida Penn State site? They're playing in Dublin, Ireland. That game's a competitive contest. Central Florida at Chris right now is a 2-point choice over Penn State. That game goes Saturday morning at 5:30 Pacific time. Did you handicap the Central Florida Penn State contest?
Yeah, I kind of looked at that game, and I probably would have leaned Central Florida with a little bit more points. I know they opened up as an underdog, and everybody esteemed them into a favorite. Central Florida has the much better defense. Again, Penn State, they're opening up, new coach, and Franklin coming over from Vanderbilt. I think it's a good situation for Penn State. O'Brien, the job he did the last couple of years was amazing, what he did for that program. And then moving in with James Franklin. I mean, this guy took Vanderbilt, the perennial doormat in the SEC, strict admission standards because of their academics, and he made them compete with the likes of the SEC. He went to 3 straight bowl games, won a couple bowl games. If you look at the stats, the defense improved every year. So I think Penn State, they have a quality quarterback in Hackenberg, a young quarterback. And so I think that, I think the line is right around Pick'em. Central Florida's a quality team. They're also starting a new quarterback with the loss of Bortles. But it's kind of like we're handicapping it based on a lot of what-ifs, a lot of with regards to the quarterbacks. In the first week of college football, it's kind of like we're handicapping out of magazines, and we're handicapping out of the press clippings. And it's kind of like we don't have a preseason in college football to be able to judge these teams and how they're going to react. And it's kind of like there's probably a lot of the steam with Central Florida because they had the better year last year. They have the better defense. Penn State's starting a new coach. We're starting with a new coach and a new system, and I think that's where the steam is coming from Central Florida.
Week 1 is.
I don't like the game.
Yeah, I don't like it either. It's a tough handicap, I think. Week 1 for me, Ed, in college football, wait-and-see week. I trust what I see, not so much what I read. The problem with reading the material with these college football teams, everyone's enthusiastic. Nobody has a loss yet. Everyone's bigger and stronger and quicker from the season before. Optimism reigns, and there's very little criticism. I mean, I really handicap as a critic. I mean, I'm looking for the negative stuff, Ed, because I would much prefer to play against, the negative stuff I see as opposed to playing on some of the good stuff that's out there. I need bad information, and the mainstream media doesn't give us a lot of bad information.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting the people pumped up. Again, like ESPN, they're selling the product, and you're not going to sell the product with negative information. And that's why everybody comes across as a phenomenal game. And we had a game on tonight between 2 schools that I've never watched a minute of their games in my entire life. And I'm sitting here watching it tonight, and it comes on Sports Center. It was a great game, and it's going to be a great season now that we had a great game in the opener between Georgia State and Abilene Christian. And as I did my research in handicapping that game, I saw that Abilene Christian Georgia State made the full jump from FCS to FBS this year. Now they're a full-fledged member, can compete in the conference. You look at Abilene Christian; they have made the full-fledged jump from Division II to FCS. So it's kind of like, how do you even handicap this game with regards to looking at the quality of the teams that they're putting out there? I've seen that the numbers steamed down, the totals steamed down about 9 points, and it's obvious that you look at these quality of teams out there that a lot of people were thinking that we're not going to see a lot of offense, and here it turned out to be 75 points in the game. So I was kind of glad I was out of it. But with regards to another thing with the optimism, you read the press clippings, and the media is completely optimistic. All the coaches are pessimistic. And all the coaches, you're always talking about what we need to work on, what we need to do this. I don't think we're ready for this game. They're always pumping up the opponent, because we're going to have a lot of FBS teams versus FCS teams. We got to watch out for these opponents. Michigan's playing at Appalachian State. Is it they already lost to Appalachian State a few years ago, so we got to not take our opponent too lightly. We have a lot of weaknesses. I got burned with this a long time ago. I remember Penn State played Arizona in an opener, and Joe Paterno talked for about a month about how bad his team was, and he wished he didn't schedule this game as the opener. And I remember they were playing Akron the following week, and he always talked about, I wish we had Akron first to tune up for Arizona, and both teams were in the top 5. So I kept reading that, and I was kind of like, wow, if Joe Paterno is saying this, it must be true. So I went and made a big play on Arizona. Penn State came out that opening week and beat them by 27, laying 3. So, it's like, again, I like to read and react in college football with regards to looking at this opening weekend also.
read and react. I like it. And it doesn't mean we don't have action in week one either. You can look alive at the half, plenty of live wagering options as well. I just need a little time to see the quarterback under center and how they're operating both offensively and defensively. It's a little bit, as a horse player, it's a little bit like betting a field of first-time starters. You don't know who has what under the hood. And, the morning workouts can help sometimes, but every now and then, there's a horse that's pumped up, doesn't run well, and there's a horse that doesn't have a lot of publicity that's a monster first time around. And you mentioned Joe Paterno playing possum. Lou Holtz was notorious for that as well. He never liked his chances in any game he played. Coaches, I think, for their livelihood, they underestimate and then like to overachieve with against their underestimates. So it's a tricky process. One thing we don't see a lot, though, Ed, in the mainstream media, coaches don't get criticized for the simple fact many times it's their brethren doing the commentating. Nobody's going to criticize a member of their fraternity. It's almost like an unwritten code.
Yeah, absolutely, because a lot of those coaches are trying to get back in the game.
Yes.
And the coaching in football is it's a good old boys network. I mean, it's not only in football, but in basketball, you see that constantly. The same people are recycled. I mean, how many years did Dick Motta have it? He was a head coach, and Bill Fitch. These guys had constant losing records year in and year out, but they always had jobs somewhere, and that's the reason why you have a lot of these coaches in the media. You really kind of have to discount everything they say with regards to the criticism. What I do like, though, is listening to them discuss the X's and O's and discussing plays and discussing how to attack an opponent. So I do think that there is a little bit of value in that. But if you're looking for the negative information, you're not going to get that, because a lot of these coaches that are in the booth are only in there for a year or two, and they're looking to get back into the game. They're looking to get a job. So they're not going to criticize somebody that they're trying to get a job from eventually.
We'll step aside and take the first of our timeouts. When we return, more with Ed Jones. Ed the Statman, our featured guest tonight. He's going to go on record with 2 plays. He's got an NFL preseason selection for us and a college football recommendation. I've got an MLB total that I like for tomorrow. We'll relay all of that in the final segment of the show. But next, we'll ask Ed for general principles in handicapping Week 4 in the NFL preseason, Week 1 of college football. Also, a note on the Dodger game tonight. The Dodgers beat the Diamondbacks 3-1 behind Clayton Kershaw. Kershaw moved to 16-3 on the season. He was solid. 8 innings, gave up 1 run. It was unearned. 10 strikeouts and 2 walks. But how about this? Clayton Kershaw did something tonight he never did all season long. We'll tell you what that was next when we return here on the EOG Sports Hour.
There's no such thing as a sure thing, unless you're talking about Ion Gaming. Ion Gaming is a website dedicated to the hearts and minds of sports bettors everywhere. If you're looking for smart, sophisticated sports handicapping information and insight,
go to EOG.com.
If you're looking for the latest news on the ever-changing landscape of Nevada's race and sportsbook industry,
go to EOG.com.
If you're looking for the most recent developments involving the worldwide sports betting scene with an emphasis on the leading sports books in San Jose, Costa Rica,
go to EOG.com.
And finally, if you're looking to join an online community of sports gamblers where registration is free and the information is priceless,
go to EOG.com.
You get the idea. Why gamble on other sports betting websites when Ion Gaming is a sure thing?
And I love a sure thing.
Hi, this is Rick Alec, president of Sports Options. Sports Options is a sports information tool designed to give sports bettors of all types the necessary edge needed to improve their bottom line. With Sports Options, you'll never lay a bad number again. We provide you with live odds from the leading sports books in the world, from Costa Rica to Curacao, London to Las Vegas, and everywhere in between. Sports Options also provides the fastest and most accurate injury information, lightning-quick score updates, and game analysis from 30-year handicapping veteran Mark Simons. We offer affordable services for players of all levels, starting at just $99 per month. To see which service best fits your needs, you can take advantage of our 7-day free trial. No credit card is needed. Just go to www.sportsoptions.com and click on the free trial link. I'm confident you'll be impressed with our product, and you'll find it the most complete and comprehensive on the market. In fact, if you don't like sports options after 30 days, we'll refund you 100% of your subscription costs, no questions asked. Go to sportsoptions.com for all the details or call 702-835-1743, and one of our friendly customer service representatives will be happy to help you. Sports Options, information you can bet on.
And we are back. The EOG Sports Hour. John Kelly with you on a Wednesday night. Glad to be here representing EOG, Ion Gaming. EdTheStatMan, our featured guest. He's been joining us every Wednesday night in the month of August, and we're glad to have him as part of the team. His website is EdTheStatMan.com. His Twitter handle, where he says he's been handicapping and betting sports since he learned how to count, at EdTheStatMan. He's a clever guy. I like Ed. A graduate of LaSalle University, has a background in math. He's a big stats guy, though he doesn't say he's in the same neighborhood as Computer Bob. Ed, Bob's at a different level, is he not? Boy, when he goes with some of the mathematical theories, probabilities, the words that he throws at us in terms of studying the stats and probabilities, they make me laugh.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's all the classes that he can probably teach are the classes I got to see it in college, and it was just like he has a lot of. You can tell from the way he comes across, he has a very diverse background in all of the mathematical fields. And it's funny, when you really get into math, most people think it's just addition, subtraction, and maybe algebra. But when you really get into understanding the differences of mathematics, you have topology, you have statistics, you get to understand standard deviations. There's a lot of different components that kind of opens your eyes to it, and to be able to master all of them is kind of like equivalent to being in the medical field. And not only are you an orthopedic, but you're also a heart surgeon, you're also a brain surgeon. And it's the best way I kind of can explain it with regards to the mathematical field. And it seems like when he comes on, he has a great understanding of all of it.
Are you a math modeler, Ed?
No, I do not. I do not model at all. My opinion on modeling is that I think it can win short-term in sports handicapping. I don't think it can win long-term, because eventually everyone will catch up to you if you have a quality model. And one of the first things I did when I went out to Vegas the first time was go over to that bookshop and do a lot of research on the industry. And I found out about the computer boys of the 80s and all these different groups coming up through time that use these computer models. And they were able to kill it in the short term, but they weren't able to win in the long term, because eventually the odds makers caught up to what they were doing. And I think a lot of modeling, you can come up with something quality in the short term, but the line is man-made. You're putting together a model against a line which is man-made and fed into by humans, so that means there's a lot of error in the line, but then that means it also can be adjusted to the way the market is coming in. So you see like a lot of the players coming through, like the Dr. Bob, who had a quality run in 2000s, and he kind of faded, and I think that's in the long run. I think it's always better to have an opinion than to be a modeler. It's okay to use them. I think it's okay to use the models in your handicapping as a guide. But I think, again, just having the opinion and the ability to analyze what is happening on the field of play, I think always gives you a better edge than just modeling.
But of course, the models are flexible too, are they not? Can't you tweak your model as the different trends appear? Can't you stay on top of it and stay maybe ahead of the market?
Absolutely. I mean, I know my personality. I would probably run the model into the ground, knowing it's worked in the past and it's got to continue to work. So, I mean, you can continually tweak it, and it just appears to me like it's a lot more work than being able to just watch the games and have a strong opinion.
You're listening to the EOG Sports Hour. John Kelly with Ed Jones, a.k.a. Ed the Stat Man. A quick timeout for a baseball note. I mentioned before the break Clayton Kershaw in the years he is having, 16-3, going for a third Cy Young Award in the National League. That'd be 3 awards the last 4 seasons. Clayton Kershaw tonight, according to the Dodgers Twitter feed, did something tonight he never did all season long. He pitched with the bases loaded. How do you like that? First time all season he's loaded the bags, and he wiggled out of it in the 3rd inning. Hill lined out to second. Trumbo flew out to center. So with the bags juiced and 1 out, Clayton Kershaw wiggled out of trouble. The Dodgers won that game 3-1. One left-hander that did not fare well tonight in the big leagues, David Price. I love him. He threw a 1-hitter last out and lost to Alex Cobb and the Rays. Tonight he got bombed at Comerica. The Yankees beat the Tigers 8-4. David Price was a $1.65 favorite and blue. Glad I didn't back him. 9 straight hits the Yankees pounded out in that 3rd inning, scoring 8 runs in the top of the 3rd. So the Tigers now a half game back of Seattle in the AL wildcard race, and they're 2.5 behind the Kansas City Royals. I like to root for that Royals team, only in that they haven't made the postseason in 28 years. Ed, that's the longest drought of any big league team. You have to go back to 1985, the last time the Royals made the postseason. And when they did, they won it all in 85 over the Cardinals.
Yeah, the Royals, they were a dominant team in the 70s and the late 70s and early 80s. They had an incredible 10-year run. And it's just they were one of the top franchises in baseball at that point. And they were battling the Yankees every year. They made the World Series in 80. They made the ALCS 3 or 4 straight years, and then finally got over that hump and won it all in 1985. And after that was it. That's the last we've heard of them. So it's a feel-good story in baseball in the year. But I was just watching tonight where they said they had 14,000 show up to the game tonight. So it's the feel-good story in baseball for the rest of us. But it looks like that the home crowd is not bought into this Royals team yet. And I'm wondering what's going to happen if down the stretch independent races, if they're going to get those crowds and get that kind of home field advantage that they need.
Well, I had no idea. Now I'm not rooting for the Royals as much as I was. A shame on the baseball fans of Kansas City not to support that team, because that's a fun team to root for. I know they don't hit the long ball, but I like a lot of what else they do. The starting pitching's good, and the bullpen is outstanding. The Kansas City Royals, maybe the story of the season, but you're right, the fans are not coming out to the park.
I'm sure that the Chiefs they'll get their 70,000 for their NFL opener, but I guess maybe it's just taking a while for people to realize that they still had a baseball team in town, I guess, from being bad all those years. I'm not sure.
You know who was good to us before the season started? Our fantasy baseball expert, Gene McCaffrey. Our friend, Discreet Cat, recruited McCaffrey to the program. He told us to watch out for the Royals. He was high on the Royals and down on the Tigers. Tigers still having a decent season, 11 games over 500 to this point, but he was right about the Royals exceeding expectations. Ed the Statman, general betting theories, week 4 in the NFL preseason.
Well, first of all, one thing I like to do is in the first 3 weeks, I like to kind of break down scores by half. If you look at the first half scores and the second half scores, in the first half of the preseason, you're generally getting the starters and the second string. That's going to be your roster for the regular season. And then I like to look at the backups and how the third quarter and fourth quarter fares. I mean, it's kind of like it's really just a rough estimate and a rough guide to see how these teams are faring going into week 4 of the NFL preseason. And if you take a look at first let's look at the some of the better teams. Looking at this research, looking at some of the better teams in the first half. If you look at the first half scoring differential in the NFL preseason, the number 1 team is the Seahawks at plus 51. The number 2 team is the Ravens at plus 34. The number 3 team is the Broncos at plus 24. Eagles are also plus 24. Packers are plus 19. What's the common theme between all those teams? Well, the Seahawks were the Super Bowl champions. Broncos, Eagles, Packers all won their division last year. Ravens, they were an 8-8 team, but they're also projected to have another good season again this year. So the 5 teams in the the top five scoring differential teams in the NFL preseason are all quality teams. They're all teams that are projected to have good seasons. So it's kind of like taking a look at this. It's like these teams are they on pace? Yes, they're on pace to again do pretty well in 2014. If you look at the worst first half scoring differential teams in the NFL preseason for the first half, the number one team, John, is your Chicago Bears. They are minus 47 in the first half in scoring differential. And we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago. I was kind of down on the Bears going into this regular season. I thought they would show up in week 3 of the preseason, but they didn't. So that was a kind of a big barometer for me. Looking at week 3 of the preseason, it's kind of like, all right, the first and second strings already looked terrible in the first half of the first 2 games. They came out in week 3 and got totally blown off the face of the earth. And I think that kind of confirms my thoughts on the Bears this year. That's going to be a difficult year with Chicago. Some of the other bad teams in the first half scoring differential: Raiders, Bills, Texans, 49ers. Well, Raiders, Bills, and Texans, they were all last place teams last year, not expected to do much. The only puzzle piece that kind of doesn't fit into this analysis is the 49ers. They really struggled the first couple of games of the preseason. They got it back right here in Game 3. Kind of weird because Harbaugh is usually a pretty good preseason coach. So, but looking at that analysis, I think this is a good guide into determining how good these teams are with regards to their first and second strings. But when I look at the week 4 of the preseason, I now look at the second half. These are all your backups. These are all your players that are going to play in week 4 of the preseason. And you look at the 3 best teams by second half score differential. Giants are plus 33. Bears are plus 26. Texans and Raiders are plus 18. So those teams, the depth chart, I mean, a lot of it is because the way the game played out. If the Bears were getting blown out in the first half, they were throwing a lot in the second half. Same with the Texans and Raiders. But it shows that their backups are still competing. The coaches are still calling plays to try to get their backups to compete, even though the first few strings have struggled. And then you look at the 3 worst teams by second half score differential in the preseason. Eagles are minus 27. Falcons are minus 27. Colts are minus 20. Falcons and Colts, 2 coaches, franchises, really don't care too much about the preseason. So you kind of look to fade them in week 4. Eagles minus 27. That's a big issue for me, especially being here in Philadelphia and following this team very closely. Eagles were 31st in defense last year. They were worst passing defense team. No matter how many changes you make in the offseason to improve your defense, and they have made changes, bringing in Malcolm Jenkins and some other players on defense, drafting the defensive end out of Louisville. With regards to when you're a poor defense, your depth is just not there, and that's what we're seeing from this Eagles team. Their backups, their defense is getting picked apart in the later stages of games, and they were one of the teams that they played well in the first half of the games, but they still finished. They're still 1-2 right now in the preseason, so their defense has gotten shredded in the second half, pretty badly. So. This is one of the things I look at when backups. So you kind of look to fade the second half scoring differential teams in the preseason. But the Falcons here at minus 27, Colts are minus 20. You look at those 2 teams, and then you go to the line, and both of those teams are underdogs. And that's another thing I don't do in the week 4. I don't lay points at all in week 4 of the preseason. Because, if you really look at it on schedule, it's backups versus backups. Really, how do you handicap that from a line perspective? It's a pick 'em. It's just pick 'em, backup versus backup. If you can take points and find an edge, taking points, you're going to have a little bit of an advantage. And it's kind of like if you look at the lines this week, the odds makers have set everything at -3 to the home team, which is pick 'em and 3 points for the so-called home field advantage.
NFL rosters right now are at 75. They'll be trimmed to 53 Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. So rosters of 75 going out tomorrow for Week 4 in the NFL preseason. The NFL does it right. All 32 teams playing on the same day so as not to give any team an unfair advantage heading into Week 1 of the NFL season. They do that with Week 17 in the NFL as well in advance of the NFL postseason. Ed, your best bet for Week 4 of the NFL preseason. And I like what you do at the website, too, Ed. I mentioned EdTheStatMan.com. He has flipped the script in terms of the sports advisory business. He gives out his plays for free via Twitter at EdTheStatMan. But if you want that premium content, the quality content that he produces with all the research, numbers, the theories behind the numbers, you can go to EdTheStatMan.com and subscribe for his service at $19.99 per month. How's that working out for you, Ed?
It's been working out very good. I've actually got an endorsement from Steve Fezzik a couple of weeks ago on Twitter, and so it was kind of a lot of the wise guys out in Vegas are jumping on. A lot of the wise guys around the country are jumping on, and I'm pretty happy with that. And most importantly, I'm getting to network with a lot of these people and share ideas and go back and forth and just improve my game considerably.
Your best bet in Week 4 of the NFL preseason?
Yeah, I'm going to go against the Philadelphia Eagles here. As I just said, they had the worst second-half score differential in the preseason at -27. Again, as I stated, their defense is very weak, and you know we're getting 2.5 points with the Jets. You know, Rex Ryan, I was following the Twitter feed last week of one of the New York sports writers, and he was talking about how Rex Ryan's calling timeouts and was really trying to win that game last week and beat the Giants. He's a guy that does try to win in the NFL preseason. But, I mean, here's the key. Especially from attending an Eagles practice this year, Matt Barkley is going to get to start, play most of the game in a kind of a showcase role. Matt Barkley is not very good. Watching practices and watching it closely, he has a hard time getting the ball out, and the velocity on his ball is a lot worse than both Sanchez and Foles, and the difference is huge. And him throwing those out routes is very difficult. He's got a nice touch pass, but trying to get those out routes, it's very difficult. I think he's going to have I don't think he's going to be a very good NFL quarterback and last in this league very long without that kind of velocity. And another key here is that the Jets are starting Michael Vick. Michael Vick's going to get a couple series, and the bottom line is that he didn't really have that good of a preseason. I think Rex is starting him just to give him a couple drives to get a scoring drive under his belt. So if he's going to get a couple drives against the poor Eagles defense backup, you know, even though we're getting 2.5, I think we're getting a little bit more here, because I think if he's going to play until he gets a scoring drive under his belt, he can at least put up 3 points against this Eagles defense. So you're kind of starting the game with a little bit more of an edge than just 2.5 points, you know, possibly maybe even 5.5 points if he's able to march them down at least and get a field goal in his first drive or his second drive. So I like the Jets plus 2.5 in this game.
The first of two plays from Ed the Statman, betting number 109, the New York Jets plus 2.5 over the Philadelphia Eagles. He told us about college football in Week 1, how he's a read and react guy. With only a couple of minutes remaining in this segment, let's get his best bet for Week 1 in college football. Ed, what is it?
I like Florida State here. I'm going to lay 17.5 against Oklahoma State. I ended up betting this game back in July. And Florida State returns 13 starters, including 4 of their 5 offensive linemen and also the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. All 5 of their offensive linemen are seniors. Oklahoma State, they're not very deep. They only return 8 starters, 2 on the offensive line, also a new starting quarterback. And a lot of times in the NFL, in college football, there's a big class difference with regards to the quality of teams, with regards to our power conferences versus our non-power conferences. I kind of like to stay away from those games, because if you look at double-digit favorites since 2000 in Game 1 versus Game 1, if you played on every double-digit favorite since 2000, you'd actually be up 1.6 units. It hits 53% overall. So if you find yourself a lot of double-digit underdogs in this first game, it's going to be probably difficult for you. But in this game, we have 2 power conferences matched up against each other. So we're kind of like an equal class a little bit. So Florida State laying the 17.5 over Oklahoma State. It's going to be a difficult year for Oklahoma State. They just lose too much, and I think this line's going to go up as we get closer to kickoff and more of the casual money gets involved in the game.
They're playing that game at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, home of the Dallas Cowboys. Florida State minus 17.5 over Oklahoma State is betting number 197. What number did you lay back in July? Was it the 17.5 then?
It was still 17.5. I'm surprised that the line hasn't gone up yet. I thought it would have been a lot higher by now. I'm a little concerned about that because, with the lines being on the board for so long, a lot of the smarter money really pounds a lot of these lines with a lot of these moves. And you see when these favorites run up really quick, you usually see them cover a lot here in week one of the preseason. Week one of the college football regular season.
Ed the Statman, thanks for the time. You came through loud and clear. Timbo47 says hello. I'm hoping EOG contributor Heim was listening again tonight as well. Hustle Double is out there. Want to say hello to Jack Hart. He's helping with the new EOG. Mighty Marone as well. Looker may be listening tonight as well. And Computer Bob, who we had on last night, maybe he's checked in as well after his time at the Rib Cook-Off there in Reno and Sparks. Ed, thanks for the time. Can we count on you again next week?
Yeah, we'll be back next week. Hopefully we can move it to Thursday nights. The schedule's a little rough on Wednesday nights. I'm definitely negative EV versus sleep here on Wednesday nights. So hopefully we can move it to Thursday nights going forward.
Thursday it is. Ed the Statman, thanks for the time.
Okay, thanks.
Ed Jones on the program. We'll step aside and take a quick timeout right here. When we return, I'll go on record with a play in Major League Baseball. The Angels and A's in a 4-game set in Anaheim. It begins tomorrow. Sonny Gray against C.J. Wilson. I won't tip my hand just yet. Return and find out who I like in that Oakland A game on the other side of the break.
There's no such thing as a sure thing, unless you're talking about Ion Gaming. Ion Gaming is a website dedicated to the hearts and minds of sports bettors everywhere. If you're looking for smart, sophisticated sports handicapping information and insight,
Go to EOG.com.
if you're looking for the latest news on the ever-changing landscape of Nevada's race and sportsbook industry,
Go to EOG.com.
if you're looking for the most recent developments involving the worldwide sports betting scene with an emphasis on the leading sports books in San Jose, Costa Rica,
Go to EOG.com.
and finally, if you're looking to join an online community of sports gamblers where registration is free and the information is priceless,
Go to EOG.com.
you get the idea. Why gamble on other sports betting websites when Ion Gaming is a sure thing?
And I love a sure thing.
Hi, this is Rick Alec, president of Sports Options. Sports Options is a sports information tool designed to give sports bettors of all types the necessary edge needed to improve their bottom line. With Sports Options, you'll never lay a bad number again. We provide you with live odds from the leading sports books in the world, from Costa Rica to Curacao, London to Las Vegas, and everywhere in between. Sports Options also provides the fastest and most accurate injury information, lightning-quick score updates, and game analysis from 30-year handicapping veteran Mark Simons. We offer affordable services for players of all levels, starting at just $99 per month. To see which service best fits your needs, you can take advantage of our 7-day free trial. No credit card is needed. Just go to www.sportsoptions.com and click on the free trial link. I'm confident you'll be impressed with our product, and you'll find it the most complete and comprehensive on the market. In fact, if you don't like Sports Options after 30 days, we'll refund you 100% of your subscription costs, no questions asked. Go to sportsoptions.com for all the details, or call 702-835-1743, and one of our friendly customer service representatives will be happy to help you. Sports Options, information you can bet on.
Time now for the JK Play of the Day. This is John Kelly's single strongest recommendation against the current numbers at the M Resort here in Las Vegas.
At the Big A in Anaheim tomorrow night, I like betting number 917, the Oakland A's and Sonny Gray, minus $1.15 over the LA Angels and C.J. Wilson. Wilson's 33. I know he comes off that game against Leicester where he was able to get the money over John Lester. But in this game against Sonny Gray, I like the 24-year-old Gray. I like the command of his pitches. I like that he's a ground ball pitcher. That's something I look at very carefully. I like when guys keep the ball in the infield. Dallas Keuchel, that's why he's one of my favorite pitchers in the big leagues. I think he's the best in terms of ground ball percentage. Sonny Gray, I think, is second in the American League. C.J. Wilson, he can get out of sorts at times. He's had trouble with his command lately. 10 walks the last 18 innings, and the Oakland A's are not the kind of team you want to walk. They're only 20th in batting average in Big League Baseball with a 249 average, but they're 7th in on-base percentage, 324. Of course, they're first in runs scored, 629, the most underrated stat in baseball. I'll take the A's over the Angels. Sonny Gray to get the money over C.J. Wilson. That's my top baseball play for tomorrow. And that'll wrap up tonight's program. Bobby the Owl Bechtel to talk college football tomorrow. Palm Tree and Wes Reynolds on Friday Night Show. Thanks for listening.